Well, you can hear it when somebody's got a lump in their throat and they're trying to fight it and they're trying to hold emotions back after reaching a goal that many would think is unattainable. When you take a job and the program wins one game, and now you've reached something that a lot of people thought was unattainable, so you gotta hold that lump in the throat back a little bit. That's just great sound from Courtney Deifel yesterday. Nikki Chavanelle's joining us here. Nikki's, of course, the managing editor, HawgBeat.com, covering all things Razorback athletics, part of the Rivals Network. Nikki, I know you don't write, softball or cover softball much, but that's, it's not one of the programs that generates tons of headlines, but maybe it will start to be now because Coach Deifel really has built something special, and it's something that it really seems the entire athletic department just is really, really fired up about this from the top all the way down to the bottom.
Yeah, I knew they were having a good season, and then all of a sudden I just started, I follow the accounts, and I just started seeing like, oh, if this team loses, Arkansas is going to clinch a piece. And I was like, wait, what? We're already at that point? I kind of thought they were on the same schedule as baseball, and it was still a few weeks out. And then all of a sudden, they've won it, and it's been incredible compared to where they started. I think Hutch tweeted it last night. Like, that really is like Sam Pittman going and winning it all by, 2025, because Alabama and Florida in women's softball have been that dominant and hard to beat these past few years.
Yeah. Do you agree that it's difficult to look at every athletics program or every sport that as being equal? You can rise to the top from the very bottom everywhere. It feels like that's such a tough mountain to climb in football. If you're talking about getting to the top of the SEC, Alabama just seems like a mountain that's almost unscalable, doesn't it?
When you look at the draft this year, 10 to 1. How do you even have that ratio between Alabama and Arkansas in draft picks this year? It's just kind of, sure, Arkansas could have had Felipe Franks just sneaking in there at the end, but even so, the disparity between the two in terms of recruiting and overall development still at this point, it's just hard to even imagine that Arkansas, they still hang in those games for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, that's true. And there's a feeling, though, also that there's an uptick in the talent anyway. And there might have been a couple other guys drafted if they would have gone and not come back for this year. Myron Cunningham would be one of them, but I know, you're going to see more Razorbacks drafted next year. Treylon Burks, to me, so much of it has to do with whether he stays healthy and what he produces, but I would imagine he's going to produce quite a bit next season. You look at his physical attributes and everything else about him, that's, to me, that's Arkansas's next first-round pick. Do you think so?
It definitely seems that way. Everybody already loves him. I would say maybe at least, 45% of the way too early first round for next year that I read had him in that first round. I know The Athletic put him in there. He's just very impressive. And Arkansas is taking away those return duties that he's, participated in the past couple of years that everyone thought, I don't like this. It's too risky. And so I think that that's a smart move. Keep him healthy. And, you have other guys that can do that stuff. It hasn't been particularly successful anyways. So he's got the number one QB rating when past 2. So that's very impressive. And, of course, scouts are already having their eyes on him based on those amazing catches he had last season.
Nikki Chavanelle joining us here on Halftime. Nikki, I'm going to get my 2 or 3 questions out of the way because originally, before getting you on, I was barred from talking during this interview because of my inability to have watched Star Wars so far.
Wait, I think you were supposed to hand your question to Maddie on a piece of paper.
Oh, is that what I was?
He was. Yeah, that's the way it was.
See, now we're just changing rules. Anyway,
you've already gone ahead. Go ahead.
That's fine. I'll ask these 2, and then y'all can geek out, and I'll clip my mic off. Anyway, big football news coming out yesterday. Arkansas's got another defensive line transfer coming in, this time coming from a previous Barry Odom recruit at Missouri. Tell us about this new 4-star defensive end that's coming from the 2016 class, Trey Williams.
Yeah, so obviously he played at Missouri under Barry Odom. He's a Columbia native, so he was a really good pickup for them that they had to get at Missouri. I talked to our Power Mizzou publisher, Gabe. He told me he's kind of a guy where you see flashes where he could absolutely be a pro one day, but he has trouble consistently providing that. So with one time around, with Barry Odom this one last time, maybe they can get that out of him. He would have been the 7th highest graded defensive player for Arkansas if his grade was, dropped in there with the rest of them. So that's definitely, very passable for Arkansas to pick him up. I don't think that's really a question of whether he'll contribute. I think he will. He's 6'5", 260, so he's got size and just a lot more experience than any of the guys Arkansas has right there at defensive end right now, except maybe Dorian Gerald, but even his snap count, because of, the injuries, it's much lower than Trey Williams. So great pickup, I think.
So where do you think, we've talked a lot even during football season, even now, the importance of line play. And I think you saw some deficiencies, which next week we could talk more about the O-line. But for right now, you saw some glimpses of what this defensive line could do, but never really could consistently get pressure on the quarterback, it seemed like. So where's your confidence level with the addition of Trey Williams? You add in Markel Olsey, John Widgeway, along with which you just mentioned, Dorian Gerald, Soley, Jashad Stewart. Where's your confidence level right now in this defensive line group as a whole, heading in post-spring and into summer workouts in the fall?
Well, I do feel much better about it now. I think those were pretty key additions. Even though they count against next year's class, that means they will sign 3 fewer than they would in the 2022 class. I think it's worth it. All those guys have experience. Ridgeway, at a lower level, but he's massive, and the coaches really see the potential in him based on how little he's played defensive tackle, but how good he already looks. And the overall room, just needed more experience, and to get 2 guys that are familiar with Barry Odom's defense, that already helps them. They don't have to have much of a learning curve. They will have to work with, the new defensive line coach, Coach Ashley. But from the looks of it, yeah, that makes me feel a lot better. I'm not saying they'll take a huge leap because, they still have to work it out, but I think the competition level is going to be higher overall, and that'll help the cream rise to the top.
All right, Nikki, this is where SmackDown's got to exit the conversation.
All right, Maddie's my mic turned off.
He's only seen episode 4 of the Star Wars. It's not a trilogy. It's a saga. It's even more than that. It's a piece of American culture. In a way that no other group of 10 or 11 movies can be. So which is your favorite of the 8 or the 9 movies, or we'll go with 11 movies, really? Which is your favorite? Do you identify with any specific character, or do you identify more with the good side or the dark side?
Well, when I was growing up, I was very into Anakin Skywalker. So even though he turns to the dark side, I'm still an episode 3 girl. I love that movie, and I know it gets heat, but I would watch it anytime.
All right. So you love the first 3 movies because they were around in your childhood, the way that I love the original 3 because they were around in my childhood, and everybody just hates episode 7, 8, and 9 just because they're terrible? Definitely because they were around when I was growing up, but also when you just looked at the quality of like the effects and stuff, like with a younger person's eye, it's just not as impressive. Like I wish they could, digitally remaster them, but make it like Jabba the Hutt is kind of a little ridiculous. They could have made him so much better if he was made, today. So if I were to ask you about Anakin Skywalker, would you have called him a 2-star recruit? Would he have been like a 4-star recruit? Would there have been? Would that have been like a can't miss if you were gonna say this is someone that I see in years becoming part of the dark side and then eventually turning good again? Like, what would you have said as a recruiting expert watching Anakin as a youngster?
Well, he was a sleeper. They found him. He came out of nowhere, but he immediately rose up in the ranks and dominated, essentially.
Yeah, lightsaber skills.
That's beautiful.
Big lightsaber skills.
I love it.
Somehow when Hayden Christensen puts on a mask, he sounds like James Earl Jones. Yeah, that's believable.
Hey, Nikki, real quick before we let you go, we got Mike Neighbors coming up here at the bottom half of the 12 o'clock hour. I want to ask you, too, a holiday that I can relate more to, and not Star Wars Day, is National Concert Day. Before we let you go, the best concert that Nikki Chavanelle has ever been to?
Oh, man.
Or your favorite.
Tough.
Maybe your favorite. Well, I guess they're both the same. So your best concert.
I just miss going to George's, like any time I've been there for a show that, I've actually bought tickets for, not ones you can just really walk into. It's always been a great time.
All right, Nikki. Well, I think concerts are coming back. Maddie and I have designs on going to a punk weekend in Las Vegas in September. So maybe we can convince you to come with us. We'll talk about that in a couple of months. Have a great week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
You got it. Nikki Chavanelle, part of the Rivals Network, HawgBeat.com, always worth your subscription. No doubt about that.
That's amazing. Her favorite movie it's the best of the worst 3 movies.
But it's really so much of it is about what you watched.
It's all
as a
what
kid.
you grew up. Same thing. Yeah, because I used to love the Ewoks and stuff. Like I don't love them now, but I was a kid because that's the one that was in the theaters when I was little.
I agreed with everything she said. Like she couldn't have said it any better.
No disagreements.
No disagreements. Her recruiting pitch for that person was spot on.
You have
Skywalker.
No idea what you're talking about at all.
Sure I do.
I feel like shunning you for the entire show. I think you only watch one of these movies. I got Ty to watch Rocky. Before I am dead, you're watching all 11 Star Wars movies and writing reports on them.
Oh, no. God, no.
Stay with us.